Should WWE have a women's elimination chamber match? What were the top 5 moments of the week? Who will win at this Sunday's Elimination Chamber? All this and more next on the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast. Welcome to the show. This is your host, Robert Red.
And I'm Micah Hickey, and I would like to let you know if you want to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so for free on iTunes, which you can get on laptops, computers, the iOS podcast app for people that have iOS devices, Play Music on Android devices, or Shout Engine. You can also follow the show on Twitter at PWP Podcast, too many P's, where you can get the latest news regarding the podcast and leave your feedback about the show and suggest some upcoming topics for future shows. You can also financially support the show on Patreon, where you will get all sorts of wonderful perks.
Oh, awesome. Great intro, Micah.
Take y'all.
Yeah, I'll take it off. Yeah, we're applauding. We actually have a guest here with us here in the show. He just won't be featured on the audio, so... we have some great, wonderful things for this Elimination Chamber edition of the podcast. We're going to be giving our predictions here at the end of the show about what we think about the Elimination Chamber and who's going to win the match and stuff like that, our top 5. But we're going to be debating, and the reason I have you on the show, the Women's Elimination Chamber match, and if it's good or bad. But let's get into some rambling first. How you been, Micah, since the last episode?
About the same, staying busy with work, all that lovely stuff. Trying not to drown because of all the rain that's in Jonesboro.
Yeah.
I almost took a canoe home from work last night.
Yeah, it was raining pretty bad last night, so, I mean, yeah, always wonderful. Oh, so, I mean, obviously we talked about Valentine's Day last time. I mean, how's your week been so far?
So far, been all right. Had to make another trip to Memphis again for my nephew. Had to go back to Le Bonheur. He's going to have tubes put in his ears, but for the second time.
Yeah, that's never good, but I mean, at least it's tubes and not anything worse than that.
Well,
so.
Yeah, and it seems like with what they found out about it, just seems like anything that can happen to my nephew does. So me and my sister crossing our fingers on hoping that this time it actually works and he doesn't have this gunk draining out of his ears.
Yeah, never good. My week's been okay. I've actually just found out at the beginning of the week I would off and on be watching my cousin's child this week. So, I mean, that's been fun. Yeah. It's interesting to have a 2-year-old when you're trying to prepare for a podcast like you're trying to watch wrestling and you have to watch a 2-year-old. So, I mean, it's a very interesting experience. I love him, so that's why I like keeping him. But, I mean, he can be a handful sometimes. So.
That's how old my nephew is. He's 2.
Yeah, so... it's a very fun experience. I mean, trying to going back and rewatching stuff and kind of taking notes and having to keep up with him. I mean, and not even getting to watch Impact until this morning. So it's a very interesting experience. So
yeah, with kids of any age, you learn to multitask.
Yeah, most definitely. But you ready to get into our debate topic, Micah, today about the Women's Elimination Chamber?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so as you know, this Sunday at the time of this recording will be WWE's pay-per-view, which is a Raw brand exclusive of Elimination Chamber. And one of the matches that are going to be featured on the Elimination Chamber is the first time ever Women's Elimination Chamber, which will feature Alexa Bliss defending her Raw Women's title against 5 other participants in the Chamber. So for this debate topic, Micah, you'll have 2 minutes to present your side of the argument, and I'll have 2 minutes to present my side of the argument, and you guys will let us know who won the argument. You can do that on the Twitter address she provided at the top of the segment. So we want to kick us off, Micah, and give your side of the debate.
Well, my side of the debate will be going why I think the Elimination Chamber match for the women is a good thing. Well, as I stated back with the Women's Royal Rumble match, you're putting them up to the same par as the men, thinking, okay, yeah, they can do this. With that being said, I'm actually looking forward to see how they do it with the men. They get, smashing into the tubes, breaking those, smashing up against the chains and all that. I just want to see, now what I'm about to say, it might turn out that I'm saying it's a bad thing. I actually want to see if they would want to continue to do this. It'd be something that they would want to, keep, the women would still want to choose to do. I'm actually thinking it's a good thing, because maybe they'll actually see how hard all this stuff can be on them physically to be able to keep up with the guys doing this. I do think it's a good thing. That, like, how I worded it may seem bad, but just with that being said, you're just trying to me. I'm saying it's a good thing, because maybe they'll think, oh, hey, well, maybe we don't need to be same level as guys. Maybe we can pull it back a little bit, because they may not be able to handle the Elimination Chamber match itself.
Okay, some very good points. Like I said, some very good points, but I disagree with you. I think a women elimination chamber is a bad thing, and I'm going to kind of give you a few reasons why. I'm going to also kind of rehash some reasons. It's one, and this is going to be the most important, or I think my biggest reason for it, it goes back to the law of diminishing returns. And this isn't necessarily a gender bias thing or a sexist thing or anything. It's just the nature of the beast. Having two chamber matches just diminishes the gimmick of the elimination chamber. Whether you have two guys matches, a guys and a girl, two women's matches, it's just the elimination chamber is diminished when you have
two of the same matches
when you have
one
two of the
night.
same matches, and that's going to be for any gimmick match, like a women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which I've talked about, like in an editorial that you can find here on Shout Engine. The Women's Royal Rumble, just any match itself. If you have two of it, it's just the law of diminishing returns. It's like when you first get something, you really like it, but after time it wears off. So just the law of diminishing returns. Two, kind of like what you said, I think this match may be too violent for the women. Now, I know the women can get physical like the guys, but I mean, just a match of this nature, that would be my concern. Of it being too violent and causing maybe too many injuries to the women, because you look and see what happens to guys' careers. Mm-hmm. They're already shortened, and some women just aren't as built as well as guys, and that's not a dig or an insult to them. But
they're just not.
They're a little more fragile, because I'm trying to be politically correct, but... Well,
me being a woman, when you're saying that, I mean, I do agree with you. There's the women aren't built like men are. I mean, there's... And I've seen,
you have Nia Jax, and I wouldn't be worried if she was in the elimination chamber. But I mean, even she would still be susceptible to entry in an elimination chamber. But I mean,
yeah.
And just general, women are not physically as well built as men are, and that's not taking a dig at them. It's just that's the truth. So I mean, just the law of diminishing returns, and I mean, another reason they shouldn't do it now, at least, because you just had the Women's Royal Rumble. You need to kind of slow the brakes and don't worry about so much about making history so quickly, kind of weight and over time, because this wasn't organic like you and me discussed in the past with the women's revolution. It's just, it's the women's, there's an elimination chamber, so, okay, we're just going to put the women in there along with the men. It wasn't organically made and built to that. So that would be another reason why I think the women's elimination chamber, at least for this year, is bad, and they should wait. But that's all the time we have for this debate. Let us know who won on Twitter by letting us know at PPWP Podcast. Tweet us. But you don't want to go anywhere, because we got our top 5 moments are coming up next. Attention, all pro wrestling fans. You now can show your support for the podcast that is by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. The Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast on Patreon. On Patreon, you will get early access to the podcast, along with access to articles and other great content. You can show your support today on the podcast on Patreon by going to patreon.com/PPWP.
This is Amber.
And this is Amanda. And you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome back to the show. Brace yourselves. It's now time for our top 5. With all the exciting action this week, we'll be counting down our favorite moments from 5 to 1, starting with number 5. Okay, Micah, what's your number 5 moment for the week?
Okay, my number 5 moment comes from Impact when Jimmy Jacobs and
Congo Kong?
Yeah, I can't read my handwriting here because I thought it said King Kong. I'm like, King Kong, that's
King
not
Kong.
right.
I was like, what's he doing on Impact Wrestling? Like, copyright infringement here, guys.
Can't read my own handwriting. Anyway, when they demand Abyss to come out, well, you don't get Abyss, you get Joseph Park's grandmother, and she's insisting, like, well, my grandson isn't that about that anymore, and then, of course, he's going to be like, I don't care, but, just that's somebody's grandma. I mean, obviously, it's probably not his actual grandmother, but still, it's like a concept. That's someone's grandmother. You don't do that to somebody's grandmother. So, of course, he has to come out. It's like, I'm not all about Abyss anymore. I'm not going to put my hands on somebody. But since you talked to my grandmother that way, of course, I have to, just beat him up, shook him up. Well, of course, I get it back at him. But the reason that stuck to me, because like I was saying, you don't do that to somebody's grandma. I mean, what if somebody did that to your grandma? Would you want someone to yell and demand something out of your grandmother? So why would you do that to somebody else's grandma?
Well, she's a stunt granny.
I know she's a stunt granny, but still, it's just the concept. You don't yell at somebody's grandma.
Well, I had to make that joke because I've been watching Brian Zane, who does Wrestling with Regret, and I just watched the episode about the special that was made back in the 90s about Pro Wrestling Secrets Revealed, and that's kind of like the line that sticks out about how there's a grandma that goes around and puts on her pads and is taking all these falls and stuff, and it's like, so I had to do the line, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good number 5 moment of the week. So let me get to my number 5 moment of the week, and it's actually from Monday Night Raw, and it is the match that just got announced like today for Chamber. It's Titus Worldwide versus The Bar. So don't really have a whole lot of notes here. I love the roll-up by Apollo, and I called this a major upset win, although this is like the 3rd or 4th time they've actually beaten The Bar. So I'm glad that they're actually getting a title match. I'm glad that Titus and Apollo are actually getting used a little bit better now. Because Apollo there for the longest time was not getting used at all, and
which was a very underuse of his talent, I should say, because he's
I mean, Titus, he's got charisma. He's a big guy, so I mean, he would be a guy that WWE would be looking for, and like Apollo, can't call him Cruz anymore because
all of this lovely stuff going on.
We won't mention that. So our hearts go out to the victims of the tragedy, obviously. So,
well, with us being in the town we live in, we kind of have
we can relate, especially because like with the tragedy, like I knew some of the people that were actually killed. So,
well, you can't hear Brad, but he's sitting here, and he knew somebody too that passed, and I know one of their cousins was one of the girls that got killed. I mean, I was 3 years old when it happened. My mother didn't want me to know about it. She wanted me scared to go to school, but I know about it now. Yeah. And anytime I hear about any kind of this stuff, it just, I feel sorry for anybody that has to put up with it.
Yeah. Didn't mean to go in a tangent, but obviously we wanted to mention that.
We had to. It's something that had to be said.
Yeah. But just like I said, I'm glad that Titus and Apollo are being used more, and I'm glad that they're actually getting a tag title match. They've had one before, and The Bar beat them to retain, so it's going to be interesting to see, and we'll talk about that next segment, and whether or not they will win the tag titles or not. But that was my number 5 moment for the week.
Number 4.
Okay, Micah, number 4.
Number 4 for me, it's also from Impact. It's when Brian Cage returns. With that, it stuck with me. Okay, yeah, Brian Cage, he's a good fighter. They had him fight, obviously just a random guy they booked for the match.
Enhancement talent, as we like to say.
Yes. For those kind of matches, it also makes me think, do these people that they book, do they know who they're going to fight ahead of time, or they just like throw them out there and then let the surprise look on their face when they see who they're going to have to fight? Because just the look on this guy's face, it was just like, which you see that with most like talent they just hire and throw in the ring at these bigger competitors. That's something that's always struck me. Do you tell them ahead of time that they're going to get killed by this person, or do you just let the surprise look on their face, add to the momentum of what's about to happen?
Well, I mean, I think he's selling, because if you look, you remember right after they started the brand split, the Raw, the very first Raw after the brand split, who was Braun Strowman's opponent? It was James Ellsworth.
Yeah. Branded.
So, I mean, you look in, like, it's just, I think it's really a matter of selling. And I'm pretty sure they know who they're going to be facing. It's just the act of, oh, my Lord, I'm facing this guy. So, it's just a really good job of selling. And, like,
with some of those people, though, if they told me, oh, like, if it was me, like, you're fighting Braun Strowman. Bye.
Well, I mean, I have a friend on Facebook, Britt Baker, and on that very same episode, she had to face Nia Jax, and Britt Baker is about my size or maybe even daintier or so, and Nia's not a small woman. No. I'm not trying to be mean, so...
Yeah, I can understand. Well, she's built for a woman. Then again, I would say I'm more on Nia Jax's size equivalent than most of the other divas. So,
Yeah. Well, hey, female superstars can't use the D word now.
pardon me.
We're trying to be politically correct now.
Politically correctness is overrated
Yes, it is.
in today's society, anyway.
Yeah. Well, great number 4. I mean, did you want to say any more before we move to my number 4?
Oh, no, just go right on ahead with your number 4.
Well, unfortunately, my number 4 actually comes from Impact Wrestling. And it's from the same show, but it's going to be the opening match between what I'm calling the Cult of Lee and LAX. And I just watched this match not too long ago. I love the hot start to the match. Nice camera work cutting between the competitors fighting. I really wish they would have did a picture-in-picture there. That way you could have seen all 4 competitors going at it at one time. I love the good ring psychology, cutting off the ring by the Cult of Lee when they were kind of cutting off. I don't remember which member of LAX it was, but I love the ring psychology. I love the rolling cutter LAX did. Nice counter to the 3 count. I'm trying to remember who had the pin, and they had the guy who was getting pinned. He threw the guy who was doing the pinning Ing's partner into him to break the 3 count, so I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the roll-up by Trevor Lee to win the match. So it was almost would be considered an upset, but I don't really consider it an upset because Trevor Lee is a really good competitor, and Caleb Conley, he's pretty good as well. So, I mean, them beating LAX, I really enjoyed. So, I mean, that was my number 4 moment of the week for those reasons.
Number 3.
Okay, Micah, number 3.
All right. Once it got to my top 3, I'll tell you, I had a little hard time choosing which order I wanted it in. I probably could have picked a better order, but my number 3 would come from the women's 6-woman tag match, I should say.
Okay, from Raw, I take it?
Yes, from Raw. The specific moment in that match is Bayley getting into the match, going up against, oh, good Lord, what's her name?
Was it Mandy Rose or something?
Yeah, Mandy Rose. Since you have the 2-3 women tag, you have the on Raw and SmackDown, you have blonde-headed women in. I get them flip-flop sometimes. Too many blondes.
All right, don't be hating on the blondes.
I'm a redhead. Got to do it anyway. But my point being on that, Bayley, you could see her just getting more aggressive with Mandy Rose, and I can tell Bayley's about to. I don't think she's exactly going to turn heel, but you can see she's not going to be less of the dainty hugger, happy girls. You could see that, just that little aggression getting out, her about to just like pop off and just be angry. I want that to happen at Elimination Chamber, but we'll discuss that later.
Okay, definitely. My number 3 is actually going to come from SmackDown, and it is going to be Dolph Ziggler taking on Kevin Owens. I felt this was a very good match, and I got emotionally invested, I think, a little bit more than I did the other 2 matches, as I have a little bit more notes. Love the nice start to the match, the nice use of the barricade by Owens, the nice neck breaker by Ziggler. He did kind of like a spinning neck breaker, not really a hangman's like the Rude Awakening, but it was almost like a spinning one. Nice counter by Ziggler when Owens went, I think, for the Swanton in the match, him putting his knees up. So thought that was very smart. Art, and also I enjoyed near the end of the match the Sami Zayn interference to where he goes to the ring and Dolph Ziggler was like, I'm going to kind of cut you off or stop you, and he doesn't get in the match, and then Kevin Owens is able to, I think, either kick him or do something to him to where he could get the 1, 2, 3. So I really enjoyed that. I felt it was a very good match, better than my number 4 and number 5. So that's why I put this at number 3 for that very reason of mostly the whole Sami Zayn interference or attempted interference. I felt that was very good, but it was a very good competitive match. You could get emotionally invested in the match, so it's definitely worth a rewatch if you want to go back and watch that match from SmackDown. But that was my number 3 moment for the week.
Number 2.
Okay, we're starting to wrap this up, Micah. So what is number 2?
Number 2 for me, it was from SmackDown, New Day versus Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin.
Shelton Benjamin.
I like how they're keeping, Chad Gable. I still have a partner going on here. Guess it works better for him. But I mean, Chad Gable is a good wrestler. When he was fighting Big E, had him on his back, and I was like, oh, he ain't gonna be able to pick him up. Just slowly gets him up on his shoulders, about to bring him like he's about to flip him over. He wasn't able to do it, but to be able to pick up Big E, and you're probably gonna laugh when I say this. Big E, when as muscled up as he is, it's like a picture I seen on Facebook. When I wanted to grow up, I wanted to be a balloon animal. And I succeeded. And as like a big buffed up guy, it's like how his pecs are buffed up. It just makes me think he's like an overgrown balloon animal. But that's beside the point. But anyway, when I see him go up against with the size Chad Gable is going against Big E, you think it's like, yeah, he might not, put up equal to him, but in this match, I think he does. I would actually like Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable to win tag team titles at some point, but because of this match, New Day won, so they get to go fight the Usos again, try to get the tag team titles again. So, but despite that, because seeing that, I want Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin to get the titles, and I look forward to whenever that tag team title reign will start.
Yeah, I agree with you. Would like to see them win the tag gold and have a little bit of a run. I think right now the New Day Usos is just going to be the filler for Fastlane.
Yeah.
I think there's something bigger coming, and I'll discuss that when I get to the Fastlane show.
Yeah.
Here in a couple weeks. So I'm going to hold off on that. My number 2 is actually going to come from Ring of Honor, and it's going to be, surprisingly enough, the main event between SoCal Uncensored and the 2 Sweet Bullet Club, which were the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page. A lot of the reason will be the finish, but I'm going to read off kind of my notes. I love the nice exchange by Page and Kaz, the kind of, I guess, at the start of the match. Great double team moves by the Bucks. Nice distraction by Kazarian. Nice use of the belt of Sky, Scorpio Sky. They're at the end of the match. They had Daniels was tapping out, but Kazarian pulled the ref before he could see it. So one of the Bucks had to take out Kazarian. And so you had Scorpio Sky, who was out of the ring, kind of hit the one Buck. And Daniels was able to get the pin, and 1, 2, 3, and we had the shock win of SoCal Uncensored. And it was a very good match to go back to watch. But what put it over the top for me and making this number 2 is the surprise appearance by Bully Ray and them making it official on TV. They already announced this, if you watch the Honor Reign Supreme, that the new authority figure, kind of like enforcer, because Bully Ray said he didn't want to be, that was Bully Ray. And he come out and talked about how he had talked to Joe Koff and how Ring of Honor had lost that last word around their honor, and he wanted to kind of restore that. So he said, sorry, this match is restarting. Just have the restart of the match. Bada bing, bada boom. The Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page win the match, and they retain the 6-man tag title. So it was a very good match. I think better than the Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens match, because you had that kind of excitement there of Bully Ray restarting the match. It was a very good match. So definitely one you need to go back and rewatch.
Number 1.
Okay, Micah, as I say, drum roll, please. What is your number 1 moment of the week? And I'm hoping it's the same one as me.
Probably not. Even though, we're going into the Elimination Chamber, and this is me. My brain works with, since I guess I'm like a kid. Some of the segments actually stick with me better than some of the matches. At the beginning of SmackDown, when AJ Styles was talking about his upcoming Fatal 5-Way match at Fastlane, you know how most guys like that, if they have the title, they complain, well, I don't have to get pinned to not win my title. Boo hoo, whatever. He actually goes through the well, Renee, come over here with me. Just drags her over here. I could be outside the ring getting my head slammed on this steel step, but someone could be in the ring over here pinning, and I don't have to lose my belt. Or I could be over here doing this, or this being happening to me, while somebody else gets pinned in the ring, and I could lose my title. Actually, I liked how he was like, oh, come over here. I could be over here. That could happen. I could come over here. This could happen. Actually sort of explains it rather than more or less complaining about, oh, I don't have to be pinned to lose my title.
Wow. That was an interesting number 1 choice there. Not something that I would have picked. My number 1, surprisingly enough, and I'm surprised, did you miss Raw or something?
Yeah, I had to work.
Okay, well, that probably explains your number 1.
Well, I did have another pick from Raw on my list, but I had some other stuff. And like I said, I was trying to figure out all my stuff, and
Okay.
Couldn't exactly point down. Yours is obviously probably something from the gauntlet match, I assume.
Well, my number one, is the gauntlet match, but more specifically in the gauntlet match, you have to pick Seth Rollins, John Cena. The Roman match was good, but the Cena match was even better. It was match of the year candidate. If I could have said a match of the year candidate, that the confrontation between those two is great. And I mean, they're familiar with each other because if you remember SummerSlam, I want to say 2015 or maybe 2016, one of those years, you had the U.S. title versus the WWE title, all where the two were feuding, and you had Seth Rollins win the match. I mean, they're familiar with one another, so that made for a very good exchange between the two. So, I mean, writing my notes, I literally had to stop writing notes because I would have probably filled out my entire note card or that I have on here. I didn't even put where Seth Rollins countered or John Cena, like I think he jumped off the top rope, puts him in an AA and delivers an AA to John Cena and goes for a 3 count and gets only 2. It was a very good, exciting match. So just to kind of read you off my notes, I said good offense by Seth to start the match. Smart strategy by Cena trying to get the 10 count. I love that because in a gauntlet match, Cena was only the 3rd competitor. There's 7 guys in there. You would have had to face 4 other guys. So it was smart to let Cena kind of rest and get the 10 count. So I love that strategy by Cena. I mean, it's very heelish, but I mean, it's smart, like I said. Nice stunner move by Cena. He pulled out like kind of a new move. I think he was going for like an AA or something, and like he hit like a stunner type move. It wasn't like the Stone Cold Stunner, but it wasn't really an Ace Crusher. It was a unique move, so I give Cena props for that. And I normally am a Cena hater. Great show of sportsmanship by Cena. Kind of when Seth Rollins was in the corner and just trying to get up, just backing away. It's like, hey, get up, guy. A very, very good show of sportsmanship. Nice counter by Cena into the AA. I think this is when Rollins was like jumping off the rope. And Cena got him and countered into an AA, so that was great. A lot of nice false finishes. I mean, I could go on and on. Just the gauntlet match itself, it ran like the first like 2 hours of the show. So in itself, great match. But in particular, I wanted to focus on the Seth Rollins and John Cena match because I feel that was the strength of the show. And just to tell you by numbers, from the first hour to the second hour, they didn't lose a lot of viewership. It was maybe like 3,000 people, and they normally lose almost 500,000 people between hours sometimes. So these series of matches in itself, just by viewership numbers, shows you how good of a match it was. So, I mean, it definitely set the tone and the pace for the week. And the other matches I had on here, I think failed to deliver or to the standard of the gauntlet match. So that's why it was my number one moment for the week. But it's time for our final commercial break. But you want to stay tuned. Our rapid fire is coming up next. But let us know, guys, what were your top 5 moments of the week? I mean, do you agree with me? Do you feel the gauntlet match was the best moment of the week, the best match of the week? Or do you agree with like Micah? Do you think maybe AJ Styles is better and it belonged to the number 1 spot? Give us your top 5 list. But definitely stay tuned, guys, because rapid fire is coming up next. Attention all pro wrestling fans. You now can show your support for the podcast that is by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. The Power of Pro Wrestling podcast on Patreon. On Patreon, you will get early access to the podcast along with access to articles and other great content. You can show your support today on the podcast on Patreon by going to patreon.com/PPWP.
This is Megan Toddy, and you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast.
Welcome back to the show. It's now time for our fastest segment of the show, Rapid Fire. For this edition of Rapid Fire, we'll be giving our predictions on this Sunday's Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. So let's start with, Matt Hardy versus Follow the Buzzers, Bray Wyatt. What's your thoughts on this match, Micah?
I do appreciate the promos that go back and forth between these two. It's actually like an even match set when Matt Hardy brought the Woken gimmick upon us, and it just fits. But I honestly have a hard time choosing between who I'd want to win. I actually am leaning toward Bray Wyatt on this one, though, for this Elimination Chamber match.
Yeah, I definitely would want Bray Wyatt to win, but Matt Hardy, I think, is more over.
Yeah.
So I want to say I want to pick Matt Hardy for this. Bray Wyatt needs to win, but I'm going to go with Woken Matt Hardy. Delightful.
I wouldn't be disappointed if either one of them won, though, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Bray could use the win and elevate his career.
That's where I'm heading with that for Bray winning it on.
Because, I mean, this feud has kind of rehabbed his career this year because, I mean, just last year, you and me actually talked about the Elimination Chamber. He won the Chamber match and the WWE title, lost it a month later, and went on to have a terrible feud. A terrible year. So, I mean, this what I was very interested in is when he started this whole Woken Matt Hardy feud. I was like, this has got to rehab Bray Wyatt's career. So
yeah,
I'm excited about it. Let's go to a match that has some implications. Asuka versus Nia Jax. Now, if Nia Jax wins this match, she is going to get to face the winner of the Raw Women's Elimination Chamber, and Asuka, if Asuka chooses to go after the Raw Women's title, which it kind of makes it look like that's what they're going to do. So what's your thoughts on this, Micah?
I'm on the fence who I want to win. Because Nia Jax is a good competitor. I lean more with her because size, similarity, and all that lovely stuff. But Asuka, she's undefeated. I'm not ready exactly for her to lose yet. But if she did have to lose somebody, Nia Jax would be a good person to lose to. But yeah, I don't really know who I want to win this match. I'm on the fence still on it.
If you had Nia Jax in the streak right now, it would almost be equivalent to what they did last year with Bayley beating Charlotte and kind of ending her pay-per-view streak.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be a good idea. Like I would have said last year, it would be a throwaway to let Asuka lose this close to WrestleMania.
Yeah.
If she loses at WrestleMania, okay, because that's the big show. At this point, she doesn't need to lose. She needs to win this match and go on to face the winner, either the Raw Women's Champion or the SmackDown Women's Champion, which I think they're going to do the Raw Women's Champion, but they could surprise us as she gets moved over to SmackDown. But I'm going to pick Asuka for this one.
Yeah.
And let's move on to the next match. This is actually the one that was my number 5 moment. It's the Bar and Titus Worldwide for the Raw Tag Team titles. That was just added today at the time of this recording. So what's your thoughts on this, Micah?
I would like Titus Worldwide to win, but I don't think it's going to happen just because of just all the stuff, because everything that's been going on. I see the Bar still keeping the tag team titles for the time being, but I would like Titus Worldwide to win this match.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on there. I would like Titus Worldwide to win the belts because the Bar have had them long enough and they've had them often enough to where if they lost them now, it won't be too bad. So I would really like to see Titus Worldwide. And this could be the match that we get the surprising title change because they seem to do that on one of these shows leading on the WrestleMania. They'll kind of swerve us and kind of change the title belts on like either a Fastlane or Elimination Chamber, kind of like these shows that are kind of like filler shows just to take up time until we get to WrestleMania. So this could be our surprise change in titles, and Titus Worldwide could win it. So on a whim, I'm going to go with Titus Worldwide taking the titles here. Let's move on to the Women's Elimination Chamber match. But before we get into it, we're going to kind of branch off. And since we're talking women, it was announced Ronda Rousey is going to be signing her Raw contract. So what's your thoughts on this, Mike? I mean, are you excited to see Rousey and WWE? I mean, what do you think her involvement is going to be in Elimination Chamber? Other than, do you think she's just going to sign her contract? Or is this going to play into a bigger narrative that's going to lead into WrestleMania?
I could see it leading into a bigger narrative on the way to WrestleMania. Now, when I first heard Ronda Rousey was coming to WWE, the mention of it and the thought of it seemed like a good idea. Now that I see her here, I still think it's okay, but it's just actually seeing her here, it's just like, was this solely a good idea for her to be here? Not knocking it, it's one of those that just, it lacks the luster the closer it gets. kind of thing.
Okay.
But if they did do anything, I would imagine they would wait until after either Nia and Asuka's match or after the women's Elimination Chamber match to do her signing. So somebody from either one of those would magically show up to her contract signing.
Okay. Oh, that's a good idea. Rousey does bring star power, and I mean, she is going to bring in outside viewership. People like the casual viewer might be interested in seeing Ronda Rousey. Coming from a wrestling fan standpoint, I don't want her anywhere near wrestling, and I've kind of made this argument and debate. MMA stars, and I'm not hating on Ronda because she does have a love for pro wrestling, so I don't really hate on her. But I will say, in general, MMA fans and stars look down on professional wrestling because we are the fake, and then, since you guys can't see us, I'm air quoting fake sport. So, I mean, I just hate that attitude toward wrestling fans by MMA fans, so that's why I don't like seeing a Ronda Rousey or someone come in. If they're going to do a one and done and get a big payoff at WrestleMania, I'm okay. Someone who's going to be here all the time, or maybe have a Brock Lesnar schedule that's sporadic. I hate the Brock Lesnar showing up sporadically. I feel the champion should be defending his title at every pay-per-view. So from a wrestling fan, I don't like Ronda Rousey signing with WWE. Just
I think that's where my standpoint is.
She's an MMA star and maybe not showing up. And you can read the article that our team member, Kathy Joe, has on our Patreon page. I just plugged it here, so go check it out. But that's kind of my thoughts on the whole Ronda Rousey situation.
Yeah, also with that being said, the random popping in and out of Brock Lesnar. What happened to the if you can't defend your title within 30 days, give up your belt thing? Just saying.
Well, I mean, I think that they apply that if you're injured and you can't defend in 30 days.
If you're injured, it just should apply if you don't show the heck up and decide to not defend your title. It should apply to the same thing, but it's whatever. They pick and choose their battles.
Yeah, they do. But let's get back to picking and choosing, and let's get to the Women's Elimination Chamber now. Who you think's going to win this?
My favorite, honestly, let's see. This is actually where it's going to tangent offers. I mean, it's not really so tangent. It's it's not going to be it's a multiple thing. Bayley's my favorite to win it because, as I said, you can see that aggression building up in her, little spurts bursting out. In the Elimination Chamber match, I would just love her to just go off on somebody and just rake their face across the chains or bang them into the tube to break it. I can see that happening with her finally just exploding from everything in that match. But with it being Elimination Chamber, you're in a confined space. Sasha Banks has the up on everybody because she competed in a women's Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah, so
none of the rest of them are used to that.
Good point, yeah.
None of the rest of them are used to that confined space. She's used to a confined space. So with that, it gives her an advantage. She may win it, but she's not my favorite pick to win, but I don't see Alexa Bliss walking out still as champion. Because her pretty little face, I'd like to see the one across the little chains there.
Hey, you leave my Harley Quinn want to be alone.
Yeah, little be short thing. If I just popped her on the head, she'd go 5 feet in the ground. Sorry, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I could pick her up on my hip and her feet wouldn't touch the ground.
Well, honestly, I think we're going to see an Alexa retention here because, I mean, the match, you've already had a match between her and Asuka. So, I mean, I think that's really where the money is a one-on-one match between the two. I mean, if you throw Nia in, I mean, there's rumors that Nia is going to face Alexa. So, I mean, right there, just for the simple fact, Asuka, Alexa, good match. Nia, Alexa, good match. Either one, that's why I'm saying Alexa. I really don't think they're going to take the belt off Alexa because Alexa's kind of like the star of Raw in the women's division and Charlotte's the star of the SmackDown women's division. So, I mean, they're your kind of money players. So, other than Asuka and maybe Ronda, she's the big money player. So I definitely think Alexa wins this. And let's end with another historic thing, the Men's Elimination Chamber. What do you think of there being 7 men instead of 6 men that are in traditional chamber, and who you got to win this one? Being
at 7 men, when they first thought it, I guess my math and brain didn't work right because I guess I was thinking 8 people instead of 7 or something. I don't know. I was like, would that mean you're starting 4 people in the tubes and 4 people? Like, no, there's 3 people in ring, 4 people in tubes. Or hang a shark cage from the top of it and just like drop them down. I don't know how this would work.
Yeah, a lot of people were like, made that joke. I'm like, okay, since we've got 7 people and we only have 4 pods, are we going to let a 5th person be in that shark
it's like
cage?
part of me was when they said that, I was imagining someone being stuck in the tube with Braun Strowman, like mainly Miz, and him just like looking down at him and just being like, just giving him an evil stare the whole time. And then I thought about it before I came here. Stick him in the tube with Elias and Braun Strowman just be like, you hit me with a big base. Get away.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. So, yeah. Who do you think is going to win the men's elimination chamber match?
I'm on a split decision on this one, too. I would like to see either Braun Strowman or Finn Balor win it.
Okay, that's interesting. Why those two?
Well, Braun Strowman, he could obviously do a lot of damage in a match like this, throwing people and like their Tonka toys inside an enclosed space. So in that case, it's the dominance factor that he would win the match. With Finn Balor, he's out of all the people, he just seems like, no, I'm not saying he's like the low man on the totem pole per se, but out of everybody's choice to pick, he's not the front runner in everybody's mind to win it.
Okay. I can see that.
I mean, I also do, like, in the back of my mind, okay, whoever wins this is going to have to fight Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. But, it's, as of a winning standpoint, I could see either one of those winning it. But,
okay.
Back to the Alexa Bliss. Why doesn't he have to fight in the Elimination Chamber match and I have to defend my title? Made a good point on that, but, sweetheart, it don't work that way.
Yeah. You haven't defended your title like in months. He at least wrestled at the Rumble.
Good point.
Yeah. But I'm going to say the thing that's going to be a very unpopular opinion to probably a lot of listeners here. It's Roman Reigns, LOL. It's been reported for a year since last WrestleMania, probably even before last WrestleMania, it was going to be Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar for the Universal title this year. So I don't think we're going to see anybody else but Roman Reigns win it. Unless this whole steroid rumors are true and Roman Reigns really did something and WWE decides to punish him and be like, sorry, nope, you lost your chance in the main event, so we're going to give it to somebody else. Braun Strowman, as much as it would be awesome to see another match between him and Lesnar and him finally slaying Lesnar to win the title, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, because in that concept, WWE has probably thought, we're beating a dead horse with this. Let's not put them in the middle of the match together.
Yeah, and I think Vince likes to do fresh matchups at WrestleMania. That's why I don't think we'll see that. Mm-hmm. Plus, with what happened at Survivor Series, if Triple H is not involved in sort of a mixed tag, that's where Braun could fit in, fighting Triple H. So that's where I could see that happening. Finn Balor, him, Miz, and maybe Rollins in a 3-way for the IC title.
Yeah.
So that's where I see the relative choices would be going. And Cena, obviously, no, because I think he's got a dead man he's going to have to contend with. And I'm thinking that's going to be a real possibility after the photos I've seen. So Roman is really the only likely person to win this match. But that's all the time we have today for the podcast, guys. I want to thank you, Micah, for joining me. And also, I know, Brad, you weren't on the show, but thank you for being here. You can follow Micah on social media. You want to let them know where they can find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook under Micah Hickey. I have a Twitter and a Snapchat. It's both under Mary Maya 94. Now, the Mary of that is spelled M-A-R-I instead of M-A-R-Y because my mother decided you can't find crap with my name on it. Seriously, Mary or Micah, can't find nothing with my name on it at all, period. If it's spelled the right, I found a keychain at Florida, Brad. Give me a break. I found that keychain when I went to Florida with the band. It was spelled, Micah was spelled right, M-I-C-A-H. I was so happy. I was jumping up and down. Everybody looked at me like I'm crazy. They're like, what's wrong with you? I'm sure the guys enjoyed that. But they're like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I found a keychain with my name on it. You don't understand.
Yeah, it's like, you don't understand. You have common names like me and Robert that you can find crap all the time with your name on.
It's like can't find, like, I find stuff with Mary on it, not spelled right. Micah, not a very common name. Can't find crap with that. So.
Okay. And still no Instagram?
No, not yet. I was thinking, before the next show, and then I realized last week, okay, I'm going to be on the next week's show. Maybe before the next one, I will get an Instagram.
Yeah, well, hopefully here in the next few weeks you can get an Instagram. They can see your pretty face, and you see Brad too. So you can follow me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Robert Ray Jr. Instagram is instagram.com/Robert Ray Jr. At Robert Ray Jr. on Twitter, and the official podcast is at PPWP Podcast, so you can get the latest updates regarding the show, news articles, just whatever on that Twitter. YouTube, it's youtube.com/user/G Robert Red. I got a lot of great stuff I want to do coming up. I'm not only going to be doing wrestling, I'm going to start doing like maybe some video game stuff, some vlogs maybe about wrestling or wrestling related stuff, because I want to talk about silk stockings. If you remember that show back in the 90s, used to follow WWE Raw, so I'm going to kind of talk about it. So I've got a lot of great stuff coming on my YouTube channel. I'm going to start doing more teasers for these episodes, so you definitely want to stay tuned to my YouTube channel for that. You can also subscribe to our show for free on, like Mikey said at the beginning of the show, it's Play Music. If you have an Android device, it's iTunes. If you have a computer, or the podcast app on an iOS device, and you do that, you can search the Power Pro Wrestling Podcast or just the Power Pro Wrestling. You hit subscribe, and it'll auto-download the latest episodes, guys. So very easy, convenient. I know everybody loves convenience here. You can also go directly to shoutengine.com/the Power Pro Wrestling and listen to the episodes there as well. And if you do iTunes or I think the iOS podcast app, please leave us a review on the show as well. It'll boost us up in the rankings, and just it will help the overall benefit of the show. So definitely leave us a review. You can also financially support the show on Patreon, or you'll get all sorts of wonderful perks like Micah mentioned. You'll get exclusive articles that is written by our latest new team member, Kathy Joe. She just did an article on the cruiserweights and how WWE can save the cruiserweight division. So go check it out on our Patreon page. You'll get early access to this podcast. There's going to be a lot more great perks, so you definitely want to go and do that as well. But we want to thank you for checking out our show, and you can catch us next time on the Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast.